Rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got it. Okay. I'd like to point out that the procedures for the meeting are inside the blue cover. At the appropriate sections, if you step forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes to state your opinion. We'll get to that next. Mr. McCullough, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Seminara? Mrs. Hamill?
Here.
Mr. Kurtz? Here. Mr. McCullough? Here. Mr. McLaughlin? Here. Mr. Potts? Here. Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Basil?
Here.
And Mr. Shaheen?
Here. I'd like to also note that the meeting is being recorded. There is one edit. Maybe there's 2 edits. There's 2 edits. Under personnel approvals, 12C, item B. Is that Calvin Alfamos, long-term sub, middle school, learning support teacher at $44,496, prorated, effective approximately April 1st, 2013 through approximately June 1st, 2013, to replace L. Vernon.
Just a personnel addition.
Just a personnel addition. And number 8, under routine approvals, we are pulling the budget workshop minutes from February 27th. I'd also like to announce that there will be an executive session after the meeting for real estate and negotiations. Are there any presentation by the public for agenda items and agenda items only? Seeing none, I'd like to do the recognition for March.
Okay, Mr. Shaheen and I are going to, with the modern technology here, make our way down into the pit. I'll walk and talk at the same time. I'd like to start off with congratulations for our technology students to the Daniel High School and Daniel Middle School Technology Student Association and their excellent performance at the TSA Region 5 and 9 conference held February 25th, 2013. The high school placed in 11 different event categories. The middle school team came home with 74 ribbons and was once again the largest middle school chapter at the conference. Here are the names of the high school and middle school first place winners. And again, please hold your applause until we're finished. Thank you. So, high school first place winners, future technology teacher, Gabriella Sweet. You can come forward for your recognition, please. We also have another one. This young lady is on her way to a school trip to London. She's obviously not going to make it tonight under career preparation. Her name is Rachel Gans, and we will make sure that she gets that. So, congratulations to our high school winners. Middle school first place winners. Under the category of chapter team written, Lydia David Hudson. Lydia here. All right, we'll make sure Lydia gets work under digital photography, Diego Santos. In the next category, electrical applications, Jonathan Arms. Okay, Jonathan can't make it tonight. Under safety illustration, Caitlin McGregor. Under career prep, Madison Oberson. Did I say that correctly? Just got a quick lesson on your name, so I'm glad I did that. Congratulations. Wait a minute, we got another communication challenge. We line these up on purpose. Leadership Strategies, Zachary Longin, Dirk Nugent, and Elijah Perry. Okay, environmental focus. Chris Wright, Caitlin Cochran, Jacob Lindahl, Vincent Bianchini, and Dylan Allen. Okay, next category, problem solving, Kathleen Doyle and Casey Hoover. Make sure they get their awards. Techno Talk, Devin Farmer and Jay Porter. Okay, and finally, video games on Amir Aquapa, Brett Berger, Scott Schilling, Bradley DeMaio, and Adam Davis. Okay, so congratulations now. We'll give them all. Also, a special thank you to the art teachers and the art students who were just out here in the lobby a few minutes ago.
And Mrs.
So,
Holman.
on with the meeting. And also to Mrs. Holman, the advisor, on her job.
Okay, and for the sake of the audio recording, I'd like to acknowledge that Mr. Sermonero is present. Under routine approvals, 8A, motion to approve the minutes of the February 23rd, 2013 school board meeting and the March 11th committee of the whole meeting. First. Second. Roll call vote, please. A discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Seminaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz? Yes. Mr. McCullough, yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
And Mr. Shaheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion to accept the following financial reports: the cafeteria statement, treasurer's report, general fund statement, general fund budget sheet, student activities, capital reserve fund.
Mr. Shane, make a motion to approve items 8 Bravo through 8 Charlotte.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz? Yes. Mr. McCullough, yes. Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
And Mr. Shaheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Yes, here too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Seminara. My apologies. My apologies, Mr. Seminara.
That makes it 9.
Kind of screwed me up at the beginning. My sheets are wrong. Apologies.
Presentation by board members. Secretary's correspondence, Mr. McCullough.
I have no.
Okay. Berks County Intermediate Unit.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Sheehy. We met on March 21st. We had some routine approvals, including the minutes. We authorized agreement with child care providers and licensed daycare centers to provide subsidized child care services. We granted permission with the BCIU to submit a 2013 allocation request to United Way of Berks County to provide child care services to low-income households. And we approved payoff request and purchase energy bags for some multi-function printers. And we also authorized a 10-year renewal of our billboard located at the BCIU Center with Lamar Companies. And Lamar will provide advertising space to BCIU with 3 posters in the first quarter of each year. That's a 10-year lease agreement. And finally, I just wanted to convey the 43rd annual convention of Berks County School Directors will be held on April 25th at Conrad Library West Elementary School in Waldorf. Everybody on the board is invited, along with administrators. The featured speaker is Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Frank Newman. And it begins at 5:30 with the reception and building tours. And you can register through Dr. Otto if it's necessary paperwork. And of course, we have a budget of BCIU goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. The Berks Career and Technology report.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Last month, we actually had our budget meeting that conflicted with the attending last month's meeting. Mrs. Hammond was also here as my backup, and she didn't attend also. However, we did get the briefs, and some interesting things was the CDL program is now been approved, and they are beginning the process of soliciting bids for actual construction of the site, as well as hiring the instructor and another individual to support that. So they're scheduled to break ground sometime in the spring. But I guess there's no snow in the spring. So as soon as they will work on that, I'll have a little bit more information on that. If you read the Reading Eagle paper this past Sunday, there was a very nice article featuring some of the students from both the East and West campus for their restoration projects on vehicles that were donated. They're going to sell their Ford Mustang, and they also, the East campus got a Corvette. I can't recall what the vehicle was that they have for the next project for the West Center, but the article was very good. Showed the students in a positive light. And I got to see the one hot rod that they had at the East campus, and it was very impressive. So it was very nice of them. In conclusion, the next meeting will be this Wednesday at the East Center, and it starts at 7 o'clock. So public as always. Concludes my report.
Thank you. Under the legislative report, 2 issues. 2 things actually. If you've been following it, it looks as though the property tax bills, the 2 of them that have been, I believe, rebilled 76 in both the House and the Senate, seem to still be in committee, have not been released to the floor for general discussion yet. There's also a House bill, and I'm gonna have to beg forgiveness. I don't remember the number, but we all received it in the pamphlet we got this week, where it has come to vote to do a very similar thing that we talked about, where we would be allowed to have parents give waivers for busing legally. They're going to, the state is looking to pass that bill so that we could legally ask for waivers. Those waivers can be revoked at any time, though, according to that bill, but it would be a transportation savings if this bill ever got actually put into place. So
that would be Senate Bill 60,
okay,
which allows the district to apply to PD for waiver of future transportation requirements.
Right.
I can just read this real quick. The bill was amended to include provisions regarding the application process. The amendment requires the school board seeking a waiver to survey the parents of residents' pupils prior to the incoming school year to determine transportation routes and schedules. The district will not be required to transport any child during regular school hours if the parents waive in writing the transportation services provided by the school entity. The parent or guardian may revoke the waiver in writing at any time, requiring the school entity to provide transportation.
So again, that's going to be key, and the language we're going to need to look at is when it says prior to the school year. That's something we're going to have to, they're going to, obviously it's going to have to be, give some type of finite time, but that's something that we can take into consideration, maybe even this year moving forward, if not definitely into the next school year. Any other reports?
Yeah, sure. I will just say tomorrow is the first Berks EIT Bureau meeting that I will be attending. I'm excited for it. So it's coming up tomorrow. So I'll give a full report next week.
And we will have a curriculum instruction committee meeting the first Wednesday of the month, providing we don't get another
April 3rd.
April 3rd, providing we don't get another snowstorm. Okay. Under Buildings and Grounds, motion to approve the Rage Soccer Club contract as revised by the solicitor. Okay.
Also A and B.
But is that okay with who had for the first?
Mike had first.
Mike is okay to do both A and B?
Friendly motion.
Okay. Okay. Discussion? Okay, Mr. Supers, you're fine. Everything is in that contract for us.
The Rays Soccer Club contract is complete and has been finalized. The Market Street Sports Group contract, we have an agreement in principle regarding the form that they sent over. There was one issue that needed to be cleaned up that they confirmed, but essentially I still need to send them a contract similar to the Governor Mifflin and Wilson contracts, but between them and Daniel Boone. So that needs to be finalized, but as presented, the motion is okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kurtz? Yes. Mr. McCullough? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
Mr. Seminaro?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
And Mr. Sheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion under financial, motion to approve the attached course and credit request for tuition reimbursement, step movement, and or the advanced certifications.
Mr. Sheen, make a motion to approve items 11 alpha through 11 equity.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I'll ask. We have in here the step movement. Is that just a language? Because we had agreed with the teachers union that we would have a movement only twice a year.
Correct.
Is that just common language we're putting in this every time we make that approval? Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. McCullough, yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
Mr. Seminaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
And Mr. Sheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Personnel approvals. Motion.
I would like to move items 12A through Z with the exception of 5B3.
5.
C5.
His own name. He's for an abstention.
Okay. So we have a motion for 12A through C with the exception of C5B3.
I second that motion.
Discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
Mr. Seminaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
And Mr. McCullough? Yes. Motion passed.
I vote yes also.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys are screwing me up. Mr. Sheen, sorry. Motion passed. I'm doing it.
And then can I have a motion for C5B3?
So moved.
Okay, we have first and second.
First.
Any discussion? Thanks for making it difficult. Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
Mr. Seminara?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Abstain.
Mr. McCullough? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Shaheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Programs 13A, motion to approve the monthly enrollment.
Make a motion A through E.
Have a second?
Second.
First and a second, discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil?
Yes.
Mr. Seminara?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamill?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz? Yes. Mr. McCullough? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Mr. Shaheen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Just if I may intervene here for just 1 second, for the benefit of those in the audience, with that 13D, we have now set our graduation date for Friday, June 7th, 2013. So please go forth and let everybody know that. Obviously, that's subject to any rain date at the time, but for now, that is the official date of graduation.
Okay. Under policies, we have...
Mr. Sheen, make a motion to approve 14.
They're all first readings. We don't need to approve them, they're first readings.
Oh, thank you.
All the way through.
So just move on to...
Move on to all these. On transportation, we have none. Under old business, we have the Task Force Ad Hoc Committee discussion. Mr. Basil, I believe you...
Wait, I'm sorry. Before we go on, I'm sorry. Go back to 14. Mr. Zuber, do we have to, even though we're just acknowledging and we're not changing, we don't have to vote on it, is that correct?
The policies, if there are no changes, you're just, there's
Okay, so
no changes.
just to make sure we don't have to, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, no, some of them there are changes. For the acknowledgement, for example, revised administrative guideline 100, there has been a change. It's just
No, he's talking about the acknowledgements.
No, I'm talking about the bottom portion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the bottom portion.
Okay.
So, okay, again, I'm sorry, Mr. Zuber, I just want clarification we didn't have to vote on. My apologies.
Okay, Mr. Basil.
Basically, the task force, I think I shared with the board, a structure of the task force would encompass 9 committee members, 3 board members, an administrator, a teacher, and then members of the public that would reflect our own committees. These folks that would be part of this ad hoc task force would have then the ability to sit on our respective committees, C&I, REC, Finance, Facilities, and then be able to participate in those discussions firsthand and have access to the working documents that those committees have firsthand. This group can begin to participate in the due diligence that tend to take place at those levels. And the way this would work then is at the task force, they would come back from those committees, meet as a group of 9, discuss some of the items that are being discussed at those lower committee levels, and get some additional input, not only from the public, but also from the administration and the teachers, and then be able to hopefully provide some recommendations for the board to consider in terms of just about anything, whether it's a budgetary item or it's a policy or it's just a method of doing business, best practices, that sort of thing. So I've shared that structure with the board and looking to get some feedback so that we can either make whatever changes need to be made and move this issue forward.
Mr. Basil, I did ask Mr. Subers, as a board, we do not vote or approve the task force membership from the public. If they're bringing them forward as their recommendations, like Mr. Blakesley has said on the C&I committee with me, that's their recommendation. We can't approve or disapprove that nomination as they're providing it. We're only going to be able to, or have the right to approve the 3 board members that sit on that committee.
Correct, but I think what I was looking for here is you recall the board has the power to assemble an ad hoc committee and basically define its structure. And so what I'm looking for here, I suppose, is feedback on the structure that's been proposed. If there's any objections to it, we need to hear those and discuss them now. If there's no objections to it, then we would move forward in terms of board members, volunteering to participate on this thing, and having a representative from the teachers union participate, and an administrator.
I did have conversations earlier with the administrator. I have my meeting, as those who attended the CNI meeting, is open. And I have the administrators or any people that are coming to that meeting at the table. Having an additional person at the table may be kind of confusing as it is, but the people in the audience have an open mic and are continually able to speak. So I'm not sure actually I'm not sure about the other committee board members, whether they're actually envisioned having a member of this ad hoc committee actually sit at the table. Is what they were looking at. I assume that they were going to be part of and represent, whether they were in the audience or get documentation for those meetings, but I did not envision them actually sitting at the table with the board. And I'm seeing at least one or two other board members shaking their heads also.
Well, let's hear from the other board members. I don't see how these folks can participate in getting their hand on a working document if they're not part of those committees.
Well, again,
they need to be able to get their they just need to be able to get their hands on those working documents ahead of time before the committees meet, so they can participate in those conversations and be able to understand firsthand what's happening within the school district. Otherwise, they're impotent, and they will not be able to not only understand completely what's being discussed, but to be able to participate in the conversations and be able to contribute something to them. So that's the reason why I know at the REC meeting last week, I think there was some confusion as to whether certain materials can be shared or couldn't be shared with the public. And, I can imagine at the Finance Committee we're going to have the same kind of issue. What's a working document and what isn't. And, the way to solve that is to have these people as part of the committee, and they're entitled to it.
Well, Mr. Subers, I think he's going to weigh in.
Well, the one issue would be to the extent that any confidential information, meaning information that was protected under some privilege or be confidential or confidentiality, such as student information, personnel information, things like that, we would want to make sure that would be redacted from whatever would be produced to non-board members. Or that information restricted in some other way to those persons.
Right. Now, if you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Potts and Dr. Otto can weigh in. When we did the activity fee committee, it was very similar to what Mr. Subers described. We were provided with information directly from the administration that pertained to the students, but all the student information had been redacted from that information so that no one from the committee had access to that type of information. But in terms of names and who was participating in what sport, it was strictly a numbers count, and we were provided with the numbers and we were provided with the financial data.
Yes, that would be accurate. There was nothing in that particular instance that was of any concern with either right to know or confidentiality.
I think some
right, well, that's because we redacted that information.
That's
Otherwise,
correct.
It would have been an issue.
I think we're going to have to screen, obviously, the documentation that's given it. The facilities, everything is public.
Right.
So I don't see that being a problem. Obviously, when Mr. Smith brings his budget to the table, it's no different if the public request that sits in the audience if anyone does show up. So,
well, just an example of something in facilities that could be confidential would be security type information.
correct. And usually that will be discussed, I think, in a public.
Yeah, but I think the point is if something was to get out to, if there was just a mailing list, the 4 board members and the ad hoc member, and things just started going out, there is a chance. Again, I'm not, just 1 second, Mr. McCall. I don't have an issue with it per se, but it adds a level of complexity where maybe the chair is the one that forwards the documents out versus the administration or the board.
We're going to have to watch the role of whoever these people are. I'm a little concerned. Are we going to duplicate what the committee's trying to do as far as facilities? So we're going to have to fill that individual in going forward. But we don't want to duplicate any conversations or double the meetings, which we really didn't come out of the meeting with anything.
I'm not opposed to task force, I think, but you have to define it. What's going to be open meeting and open ending? I think that's going to cause a little bit of a conflict. I think people will forget who's who at some point in time. I mean, we've done task force, and Mr. Basil, you just said, for the activity fees, but that had a strict purpose. So, if you're going to do that, that's fine, and I'm not opposed to that. But I think if you leave it open-ended to be on any committee, I think it's going to be a little vague, so to speak.
I was reluctant to give out information at the REC, mainly because I wasn't sure if I should, and that was my concern.
Correct.
And a number could change, we could figure it out, but then it didn't get passed on to the ad hoc.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden all the numbers are floating out there that aren't right.
I think it's
again, if you define a task for the committee, that's a great thing. I mean, I want the public to get involved, but I think if you leave it open-ended, it could be construed. I don't know. Like Mr. Sheen said, it could be confusing.
And again, I think as Ms. Hamill said, I mean, we deal with an awful lot of numbers, and they move around a lot, and they're constantly live. I welcome, the committee input, but I'm not sure an ad hoc committee, maybe you want to call it a steering committee. Does it have to be an official board committee, or is it a joining of the two organizations in some type of? And does it need to be an official committee? Is the question. Yeah.
Finance would be crucial, especially when you're talking about
right.
Correct. For my committee, if I put something together and I'm emailing it to all the committee members, would I then just add that person to my emailing list and just send them the information that we're going to talk about that evening? Is that appropriate to do? I guess I'm just a little leery if I should just give out information.
You're going to question yourself every time you push the send button.
Right. I'm going to wonder where this is going to end up. Not that I'm opposed to it. It's just is it okay to do?
Yeah. The people on the committees know that the people on our committees know that information stays within the committee, and it doesn't leave the committee until it's brought to the board.
If it's a public record, how I look at it, people want to help out and they want to request a public record. They have a right.
It's a working document until it's brought to the committee.
Then it's not a public record.
That's right.
Mr. Subers, maybe you want to explain the difference between a pre-deliberational document and what's subject to use by anybody.
Yeah, there is an exception to the right-to-know law for pre-deliberation documents, deliberative documents that the board is considering prior or in investigating a motion. And those documents do not become public until acted on by the board.
And again,
clearly, I'm sorry, somebody speaking?
Yeah, I just from my standpoint, this is Walt again. I have no problem, again, with the member of and I'm not sure what we're calling the organization officially yet, but of the organization being part of the C&I committee. I have no problem with providing documentation, because all we actually end up doing, for the most part, is providing an agenda prior to the meeting. There's not, and from my standpoint, there's not a lot of a document going out until the meeting. And if it does go out, then it's gone out with the caveat that you hold this, it can't be distributed. And I think at some point we're going to have to trust that organization that that the people that they're bringing forward. And I've seen the names. I mean, that they're going to have to hold them close to the vest and unto themselves until after they're brought out in the public at that meeting. Because what we don't want, and we were talking, Mrs. Hamels, for example, your committee, if you sent out a proposed, fee schedule change, 3 days prior to your meeting, and all of a sudden the room is full of people because that document got out by no fault of yours, you end up running into an issue at that point. And I think.
I'm sorry. I think we have to. There's going to have to be a certain level of good faith that this board expresses towards these task force members. I mean, these are members of the public who are volunteering their time to try to help us as a school district. And I think, we need to figure out a path forward that enables that to happen, because otherwise they're just members of the public. and they don't have the information that we do. You still have this issue of information being stale that they get. They're going to learn. I mean, they're not stupid people. I mean, they're going to learn pretty quickly that, look, the numbers you're getting are draft numbers. They're assumptions. They're not being held to, they're not a final number. They get it. These are smart people, and I think we need to extend to them a little bit of faith that once you're part of the committee, you have certain duties and responsibilities in terms of holding on to information and discussing it and what's being disseminated and what isn't. And, if there's a breach of that good faith, then those people will be asked to leave the committee. The task force entirely, I would imagine. Because, if they can't abide by the rules that we've established, then they shouldn't be on the committee to begin with. And I don't see this as operating any differently than what we had going on at the activity fee committee. Twice we had the activity fee committee convened, and it went on for 2 years each time, or 1 year each time, and you had 3 members of the public, you had 3 faculty people, and you had 3 board people on there. And we never had any problems with potential fees or how those fees were even being tabulated and so on and so forth, getting out to the public anywhere. And I think the risk of that happening was just as high in that particular case, if not higher, than what's being proposed here today.
Again, I would feel comfortable if we could either get Mr. Subers or somebody would draft a set of guidelines, role objectives of the role, so that we know exactly it. I mean, as Ms. Samuel said, she's somewhat hesitant to give data. I don't have that as big, but I would be concerned also. I mean, if it's just guidelines, I don't know if we need, as the ad hoc committee, an ad hoc committee stays in place according to our guidelines until it achieves an objective. And from what I'm hearing of this, there is no objective ever achieved. It's going to be an ongoing running committee. So do you call it a public? Do you call it something else and make it a standing committee with a representative or whatever? I think we need to look at that portion of it. I don't disagree with you, Mr. Basil, that I think that they need to be. We need to have a member of that advisory committee or whatever it's going to be. The nomenclature is going to be. So that they can go back to their population as a whole, so that we don't get the transportation people running down a rabbit hole that we've already run 5 times because it's a great idea, but we've looked at it 4 years ago and legally you can't do it, or something curriculum-wise same way. So I believe and I support what you're saying. I just think we need to put a little bit more structure around what can, what can't be, and the actual role.
Well, I think these task force, obviously Westchester made this work.
And I'm not saying we can't.
They're a much larger school district than we are. These people had access to information firsthand down there, and it was effective. And I just don't see. I think we're overthinking this to a certain degree. I think that this is something that's good for this district. I think it doesn't have to have a specific, agenda being achieved. It can also be just a time period. Hey, look, come next December when we elect our committee members again, that's when this task force theoretically would dissolve, or quite frankly, theoretically be reinstated for another 12 months to continue to pursue, the objectives that it needs to pursue. But I think we need to get something else there and running and try it. There may need to be some adjustments that get made along the way, but until you start something, there's no way you're going to know whether it's going to be effective or not and how it's working out. Clearly there's going to be some iterations to this. We're going to make some changes and whatnot, but I think to delay this and kick it down the road and then get some guidelines in place and then vote on the guidelines and then make changes to the guidelines and then come back and vote on it again, it's going to be August. And if we're lucky, and then maybe it's September. And by then, what good does it do to the school district, and what good does it do to the task force?
And again, I'm not saying we wait till August, and I'm not saying we wait long. Mr. Zuber's been taking a few notes. If you could contact Westchester, I just want to make sure that we're doing it right.
Well, that's fine. We certainly can get in touch with Westchester, but I think it's up to the board to define what the purpose of. And
I think that's what we have here. What is the purpose? That's all I'm trying to. Is it to get a larger pool of people to be helped try to solve a problem? Every committee we put together before, and if you remember, the Revenue Enhancement Committee was an ad hoc committee. It had a purpose statement, and we worked that purpose statement. And that, I guess, maybe in the last 10 minutes, I guess I've been running around. What is that purpose statement for this ad hoc committee? Or are we just, does it need to exist, or do we just need to say that, Mr. Blakesley is going to sit on the C&I committee with me, and Mr. Corey is going to be on the finance committee, and somebody's going to be here, and they're going to report back to the larger group and bring their ideas back up to the committee?
I didn't think it was this complicated. I thought this task force was being assembled for the reasons that they've stated, like in their mission statement to the board that they put in writing, more than 2 weeks ago, which was they're here to help us solve the problems of the school district budgetarily and look for ways that would save us money and improve our efficiencies and our policies, and it's going to allow for greater public input from a variety of different sources. And I think it's a compliment. It's something that overlays and complements the committees that we currently have. It gives the public a greater voice in the process. And quite frankly, they become the board's advocates and our boots on the ground in terms of getting information. I mean, we all know that we as a board, at least I've seen this over the last 6 years, have struggled to get anything done because we don't have enough people to pursue the ideas down and get the information, the due diligence that needs to be done in order to present a coherent idea to this board for recommendation or disapproval, one way or the other. But, the problem is look, how long did it take us to find Market Street Group? And we didn't even find that. There was a member of the public that brought that to us. But we spent 3 or 4 years looking for an outside agency that would help us market and sell advertising for the school district. Now, had we had, a task force member sitting on the REC that was part of those conversations, perhaps we would have been able to have found that lead a lot sooner, because we would have had maybe 20 or 30 people out there making phone calls and doing research on the internet for the same purpose.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I agree with Mr. Basil. This has great potential. And even if we're going to have some issues along the way that we're going to need to iron out, but we have a group of people who are dedicated, who want to come to the board and offer solutions to help us achieve our goals. We should be embracing them, I think. So I just wanted to express my support.
I just personally want a guideline of what I can and can't give out.
Right.
Well,
I just want to make sure I don't give anything
obviously, all these
outlet.
committees meetings are public meetings, and very seldom do we have very, very many people in the audience until there's drastic need for funds. Obviously, this year is drastic. We've had more people come out. Things are getting done, and hopefully, as I said before, hopefully people keep hitting the road and trying to bring more money in with fundraising. It seems after this budget's over, people are going to go away, and I hope that's not the case. So where do we really stop? If we open it up to the public, they're not there, and obviously one individual's coming forward, and I'm for it too. But let's just understand the guidelines, what they're going to follow.
Well, again, I think the way we can move forward with this is that the next committee meeting that is coming up, because finance is not this week, correct? There was not a finance committee. Okay. So
finance is not this week. Okay. We have to reschedule that.
Okay. So the next committee meeting that comes up will be my committee meeting on the 1st. I have no problems with Mr. Blakesley attending that meeting. He'll get everything that everybody else has because there's not a problem. In the meantime, if on April 3rd, in Matthew Brooks, if Mr. Subers could put together some guidelines as far as exactly what can and cannot be disseminated, just so that Mrs. Hamill or anybody else who's got some concern can fall back on it and question, and then move forward with it. I don't disagree that it's a thing we need to do. We just need to determine which board members will sit on, I guess, the oversight committee of where everybody would get together. It would be like their board committee that would report back. So and go from there. So I would guess anybody who has any desire to sit on there, and again, we did talk about it being by municipality, not by voting region. So anybody from either Birdsboro, Amity, or Union that wants to sit on that oversight or advisory ad hoc committee between the two, if they can get your names back to Mr. Basil. By when, Mr. Basil? But obviously by the committee of the whole meeting, I guess, unless somebody wants to step.
look, as soon as possible, I think. And let me just say one other thing. I mean, understand, this task force can work in reverse. So if you take those 9 members, that list that I've provided to the board, and they get together as a group, and you got an administrative representative, you got the teachers there, you got members of the public, and you got board members there. And clearly the task force job is to help us address the budget. They can sit there and say, look, we're going to prioritize, here are 5 areas or 3 areas that we're going to focus on to help the school board achieve whatever this, our objectives are. And you got input from 3 board members and the administrator on there too. And then now those people, those 4 people are going to go sit on those committees, have an opportunity to take that mission, so to speak, to those committees and say, look, this is what we discussed at the task force, and what do you guys think at the committee level here, at REC or facilities or finance or whatever, about these 3 ideas that we're working on, and they can begin to collaborate and pull information from those committees back to their task force committee to work on, so that they can make a recommendation as a whole. They can bring the separate pieces together that the committees are working on, and bring it to one place where it can be put together cohesively, then brought forward to the board for some sort of recommendation. So I think this thing has some advantages. It's not just these guys sitting at committee levels and participating at the committee level and then, I don't know what, just getting information and then coming back and just chit-chatting about it. I think it's the other way around. So as soon as board members who have an interest in this, you want to express it to me immediately via email or anything else, that'd be great. I'd like to have it before the committee of the whole meeting so that I can send that around to everybody so that we can vote on it at the next meeting in terms of, these are the folks we all agree are to sit on the board or on that committee.
Would these committee members, the task force members, be voting members of the committee?
No, they can't be.
There is no official action taken at the committee.
Well, there is an action as to whether you take it to the board as a recommendation or not as a recommendation.
Is that legally considered an official action? Because how I understand our policy is that no official action is allowed to be taken.
But there is a recommendation that's taken.
That's correct. They can make recommendations to the board for action. They cannot take any.
Because even the ad hoc task force committee, the ad hoc, what was it?
Activity fee.
Activity fee committee, they made recommendations, but they weren't all board members, so they had a vote. So I think, before being dismissed right off the bat, that they can't have a vote. In the past, they have on our ad hoc committees. So I think that's important to remember.
But this isn't the ad hoc committee. These are standing committees that they're going to be on and representing.
So then they don't.
Yeah, but they can be in terms of the way I pictured this. Just to clarify that, the way I pictured this was that somebody was sitting as a representative from the task force at the C&I committee. They wouldn't necessarily have a vote at that committee. They'd be sitting at the table, part of the discussion, and entitled to the information that the C&I committee was discussing. So they have that information firsthand. It can be part of that discussion in real time, as opposed to a member of the audience with no information in front of them. And I don't see this as any different than the board's participation on the foundation, for example. I mean, we don't have a vote in what the foundation does or says. We sit there as a silent advisor on that board. And I kind of see the task force members as playing the same role on the board's regular committees.
Maybe just to move forward, I mean, are you envisioning, Mr. Basil, that the board would vote on making this an ad hoc committee, or are we?
The board has to approve an ad hoc committee. I mean, that's our policy.
I'm still, again, maybe I'm just being a little thick about this. I'm still trying to understand what the function of this ad hoc committee is going to be. If I've got a member on the C&I committee who's going to go back to this bigger group and discuss what is being said, then what is the function of the ad hoc committee, who's going to have 3 board members, an administration member, a member out of each one of the other committees? It just seems like it's another layer. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're right.
I tend to agree with you. I'm trying to figure that out. I totally understand having the help on our committees. I support that 100%. and I welcome them to come on our committees and work with us and help us solve problems. I'm a little uncertain what we're doing on this task force.
Right.
Correct.
What are the board members, what are we all doing on that committee?
Yeah, that's where I'm having problems myself.
Now back to define
for them to regroup and figure out where, how they want to attack the problem. But what are we doing on that?
And that's why, again, I define, that's why normally ad hoc committees that we as a board sit on, there's a purpose and a goal. And once we find that committee is gone. We disband that committee. So again, if the task force has 3 board members on there, but there's no goal or task, that's what my initial question was. What's the point of it?
It just seems like it's an extra layer. I mean, and again, I'm going to go back to my committee because it's the one I'm familiar with. If Mr. Blakeslee sits on my committee, we go through. He brings information from the group to us. He knows what the subjects are going to be. We talk about it. We bring a recommendation back to our board. They bring a recommendation back to their board. They get ideas. They bring them back again, and we're discussing them. I'm not sure where this ad hoc centerpiece fits in yet. And maybe it does. Maybe I'm just missing it.
No, the idea is to avoid redundancy, okay? I mean, the task force that were established in other school districts literally had a carte blanche information to go out and make recommendations to the board as a whole in terms of ways to save money or improve efficiencies or improve policies and that sort of thing. And they were coordinated at a global level. And I think the issue is one of we're trying to prevent a redundancy and a wasted effort by those members of the task force to pursue things that this board has already researched or the committees have already researched in depth. And so the difference is these people need to be able to sit on our committees and get the information that the committee is talking about and be able to discuss that in a global context. C&I may be talking about block scheduling, for example, but that may not be, in context with the discussion of, how that would impact our facilities, how that would impact our finance, how that might impact something else. But the ad hoc committee might be able to take that information and, begin to work with the folks from finance and work with the folks from REC or wherever in a much more global scale. And by having the 3 board members on there as part of that committee, an administrator and a teacher, you're getting different perspectives on what types of questions and what sort of, I think it improves the vetting process for those agendas before they move forward. Otherwise, you're just going to have a group of people out in the public trying to get their hands on information. They're going to have a very difficult time doing it because they have to file a right-to-know law or right-to-know request for every single piece of information they're trying to get their hands on. It'll take them forever to get up to speed because the information they tend to get is already dated. It's like 5 iterations old, so it's not even relevant to the discussions that are taking place. And then when they come forward to make a recommendation or to provide some suggestions to whether it be the committee or the board as a whole, we're already 3 months past that conversation. So I don't know. Other school districts and managed this work without complicating it so much. I'm just trying to replicate what those other school districts did here in our school district because I think the dividends are enormous. I think we can benefit immensely at the committee level by having other people go out and do the research for us, particularly on certain committees like the REC or finance or some other place where we're having a hard time bird dogging ideas down because there aren't enough people to make the phone calls or do the research or do anything else. And we've got a group of people out there that now want to help us. We have to be able to empower them to do that.
Well, if I could play the devil's advocate for a minute, if you kind of play that through, then technically, if there are going to be board members on this task force committee, those board members should be the chairmen of the committees. I mean, that's so you have continuity.
Which means we're almost all going to be on that committee too then.
I'm not being difficult here. I just don't understand why we're at that level involved in that task force committee. I run a facility. I want them on our committees.
Right.
Sure.
I don't think there's anybody here. I don't think there's anybody here that says they should not be part of our committees.
Correct. Right.
Okay. I think you got everybody bobbing their heads yes on that one there. Correct. I think we're all still very lost it as far as what this next committee's function is and why it even exists because they're taking stuff out of our committee back to their general committee.
Right. Well, Mr. Seminaire, if you're chairman of the curriculum committee and then you're on this task force, you've already discussed it in your committee with one of their members. So now if you meet with their task force, you're redoing it again. And if they have something to add, they should have brought it to your committee
via their representative,
not to the task force.
We're going to have a meeting.
So you're remanding after the meeting, like Mr. Sheen said, another layer that, quite frankly, I don't know if we need. But again, I agree. Bring their input. Have them sit in it. They know when they're public, open to the public. You know, they could sit there. If they want to feel they could sit at the table, fine, sit at the table with us. But I think this is add another layer that, again,
Well, look, remember, this is where we were 2 weeks ago when the task force suggestion first came up, which was this task force would be made up of members of the public, and they would come in and sit in our committees and have a seat at the table. So it was suggested by, I think it was by Mr. Sheehan, that he wanted a board member of each of the municipalities to be a part of this overall task force structure, which is why it was inserted. Now you guys are telling me you don't want them.
No.
You don't see the purpose of that, so take them out.
No, Mr. Basil, I think you misunderstood what I said. What I suggested is that a member of the board be part of their general group, okay, as our representatives of each of the municipalities, not as and maybe you're telling me that the individuals we're seeing here is their board. I mean, they're over. I mean, is that what we're talking about, or I mean, is that their governing board structure that we're going to be sitting on, or is this a board that's going to report back to their governing board?
No, this is the task force. I mean, we are, look, the task force isn't going to exist unless it's part of this school board. And quite frankly, it's got to be integrated. There's got to be an administrator assigned to it. I think they've asked, in other places, the other task forces and other school districts had participation by teachers on it in order to get a better perspective on the different things that they're looking into.
Like a round table.
You know what? Let me.
Or anything else. Now, hold on a second. So that is the task force. Now, do they have other members that are part of that task force that can be, quote-unquote, the boots on the ground? They can be assigned tasks to go out and take care of some of the informational due diligence? Absolutely. They're going to have a much greater membership that's going to be able to provide some research hands. I mean, look, if you were looking into grants, I can distinctly remember the issue we had with grant writing and getting grants and that sort of thing. Nobody had the time, either at the administrative level or at the board level, to go out and research grants that were available, what types of requirements were needed to be had to meet those grants, then to pursue those things in terms of grant writing, applications, who was offering grants, all kinds of different things. It required a mammoth amount of time and effort to do that, and we just aren't staffed like that at our school district. Well, that's a perfect thing for the task force to pursue, right? I mean, it's the ideal vehicle for that, because you have the oversight of the administration and the board directly, and then you've got a couple of key members from the public that are there to be part of that governmental organizational structure. And then they've got the membership, people who attend those meetings, you can assign that task to bring that information back to that task force so they can bring a deliverable to this board to either approve or not approve in terms of recommendations. So, if you guys don't want board members on the ad hoc committee, then, essentially what we're saying is it's just going to be a group of people from the public that are going to be meeting whenever they meet, and they can come to our separate committee meetings, and we'll do our best to give them information firsthand, but that's pretty much it. And at the end of the day, they may or may not make recommendations to us as a board, but quite frankly, I think the information they're going to be getting is going to be a little stale.
Hang on, I think we're talking similar, and maybe we're and if I can purvey on Mrs. Tyke, she's in the audience. I just want to ask a question. Do you envision this committee, and let's not call it ad hoc, because this committee being the oversight committee to your overall organization, with a couple board members and a member who's C&I and a member who does transportation, that goes back to your general population and discuss the issues?
We're open to whatever is best for you. We're here to be an asset to you guys.
Right.
Where the main thing about all this is it needs to be collaborative. And I know Mrs. Hamill, I mean, she was, she's trying to come up, she wants to be, but I can even see like deer in the headlights, she doesn't know what to tell me. And Mr. Basil, I think, was very eloquent in explaining, what we're trying to do here.
But there's 8 board members that are still confused, so we're trying to understand, or maybe 7.5, but go ahead.
What would you like us to do tonight? Give you permission to sit in on our committee meetings and forward you that information? Like, what action would you like us, while we're still ironing out the details, is there anything you would like us to do for your group tonight?
I think what would be great is if we could figure out a process for us to have access to that information, and if you have channels and the way that you want us to communicate with you, and like Mr. Basil said, I mean, we don't know all the rules to some of this stuff, and we don't want to, waste any of your time. We're trying to help leverage your time. So, and one of those things is, some of these things have been discussed, and we don't know what they are. So I think that's why he's saying you need an administrator. And by the way, if you have questions about the Westchester, and Dauphin County also did this very successfully. And the school board president was the one who actually was in charge of that. And he met, the people all met in the cafeteria, and all the committees were at separate tables. And there was an administrator or like the head of a department that was on those particular committees. And that's how, the public that were coming out to help would understand the ins and the outs of the things that have been discussed and what's helpful, what's not helpful, because
I don't think there's anybody on the board that, and we've all basically took a straw poll, that has any problems with your organization. And again, I'm going to apologize for the names you gave me, but having the Citizens Task Force sit on our committees, okay, and have access to that information. All we're asking for right now is to get guidance as to what information they can and can't provide based upon confidentiality and some of those things. So that's number one. And number two,
you're still here.
You're still there. Number two was, we're trying to figure out. I think Mr. Ciminero and I are in the same spot. We're confused as to what this oversight committee that consists of the 3 board members, the people that sit on our committees, are going to do when they get together. Because it just seems like it's another layer then that takes back to the next level, which is, I guess, be yours and then back to the board. So I'm a little lost, and maybe I'm just being real simple about it, but I'm trying to figure out what the function of that actual organization is, whether you want to call it a standing committee, you want to call it an ad hoc committee, an advisory committee.
I just want to, some things were said about Westchester, and I did have conversation with the superintendent at Westchester, and one of the things that, and I think it's important in this whole conversation, we keep saying task force. In Westchester, it was a budget task force. And that started, and one thing that the superintendent at Westchester made very clear to me when I talked to him was they started this budget task force at the beginning of a budget season. They started to mobilize in the month of August. And by the time they got to the district got to the budget, the first time they did it was in 2009, and then I believe they did it again last year. By the time they got to the budget, this budget task force had already done all of what I think is being discussed here tonight. The background research. The superintendent at Westchester described to me that there were literally hundreds of people on that task force in the Westchester community. So it was a rather large and serious undertaking. And when I mentioned to him that we were looking to start one now, he said it's going to have to be a different model than what was used in Westchester.
That I agree with. See, that I agree with. A budget one would.
We would love to be able to do, in August to start over. But the bottom line, guys, is I love you. I've been to a bunch of these meetings now, and you guys work really hard, but a lot doesn't get accomplished, and you have to pass this budget in like 2 months, and you need help. And so maybe it can't be perfect, but let's try something. Like, come on, let's just try.
again, I'm going to ask again, what is the purpose of this committee?
It's a budget task force. I mean, that's exactly what these guys have asked from day one, 4 weeks ago when they first brought it up at our budget meeting, and again 2 weeks ago at the committee of the whole meeting. They gave us a one-page outline of what they were trying to accomplish, and here it is again. I mean, essentially, they're trying to help us with our budget. They're trying to figure out ways that we can.
Let me bring up a point, and correct me if I'm off base. You know, we support you sitting at the table next to us at these committees. So let's take the example that you're sitting with us at the finance committee, and we've got some issues, we've got to crunch some numbers, and you have the same piece of paper I have, and we have a takeaway. It would be your responsibility, or the person from your task force, their responsibility to say, okay, let me take that back to my people and start working on it. You go back to your people and crunch the numbers. I don't have to be at the table when you do that.
No.
In your committee. No. That's the difference we have.
And we agree with that.
Your job is to go off now to your team and to work with them with the to-dos that you've had from your committee. The same with the C&I committee person and the REC.
Right.
We don't have to re-meet with you again.
No, but I do think that there has to be, like even in that one meeting that I went to, with Mrs. Hamill, she was going through these numbers and stuff, and, there were some questions that I had that I wasn't sure, I was on the audience, and even if I was sitting at the table, I don't know if I could want to interrupt her flow to ask her. So maybe I might need an extra 15 minutes to say, hey, what do you think about this, or can I look into that, or what,
Yeah, but if you're part of
that's all part of that committee meeting. I think that the issue that the 8 board members sitting up here have is, how is that any different than getting this other committee together? I mean, we already agree that every one of our committees will have a member of your organization sitting there providing all the same data, all the same information to discuss openly as an equal member of the discussion at the table. Okay, and if you need an extra 15 minutes, just like we're taking an extra 45 minutes to try to understand this, till you understand it and able to go back and reiterate it to your group to get ideas to bring back, nobody here has a problem with that. We're still trying to understand where this email that you sent out, Andrew, actually fits in the overall scheme of the two organizations.
See, and if you're on the committee, then the chairman will be included one of your members in the emails. You'll be included with the data, provided it's not confidential. So then you'll be up to date as to everything that committee is discussing. That's what I agree with that. That's not a problem. Again, the second layer of then meeting as a task force doesn't need necessary. Mr. Simonero said, go back, you can meet with 1,000 people or 500 people. Then when the next Revenue Enhancement Committee, go to Mrs. Hamill's committee and say, this is what we presented, or this is what we came up with. That's a great idea. I just don't understand us being involved in a formal task force.
Well, what you guys are suggesting is you're suggesting the very structure that was suggested 2 weeks ago.
The only difference, Mr. Basil, is I recommended that there was a board member from each municipality as part of their organization.
That's what was presented to you. The same organization with now 3 board members attached to it. And we added an administrator so that those questions, if there's an administrative question that came up, that administrator can address it. Whether it's Dr. Otto or assistant to the superintendent or something else, they can address those administrative questions directly without having to go through a chairman of some second committee, then back up to the administration some level. So you're skipping redundancy. And then 2, to have what most other committees don't have, which is to have some input from our largest employee group, the teachers, in some of the issues that are being discussed, because they may have some first-hand knowledge that we're not getting as a board. And I think that's the only 2 differences between what we proposed 2 weeks ago. Today is trying to incorporate the feedback we got from the board from 2 weeks ago, which was to add 3 board members, and B, to give that group, the task force, a direct link to the administration and to the teachers to get some first-hand knowledge. And we all agreed that we wanted the administration to have a direct role in this task force so that they could decide when and where information that was being disseminated was appropriate, and that we weren't monopolizing certain administrators' time. So there has to be some oversight from the administration to be able to tell.
Okay.
That's that committee, hey, look, we're spending too much time on this, and you're going down a path that you can't go down.
Okay.
Otherwise, people are spinning their wheels, people get frustrated, and then they don't want to participate anymore, and everything just falls flat, and then nobody gets anything out of this.
Okay.
No value for the school district or the public.
Okay, and Mr. Monero said it we had 2 weeks to think about it, and I think the board, I don't want to say unanimously, but pretty close to it, decided that we don't want a member of the board as part of their overall committee. We're already going, am I wrong?
I would suggest this. You don't want to drag this thing out in debate and discussion.
Right. Longer.
And why don't we just get you assimilated into our committees? Get you sitting at the table next to us, get us working together, and as we progress, if you decide when you get together as a group, your group, you need representation from us, so we can bring you that representation.
And Mr. Zimonero, I agree with that. The only caveat is that they have to understand you must work through the chairman. Because we can't have everybody from your task force emailing Mrs. Pence and Dr. Otto for information. Right. It has to be structured through, and again, I'm not saying you will, but my concern that the comment Mr. Basil said that you have access, you can ask for information. That's true, but go through your committee chairman.
Yeah, right now the committee chairman.
That's exactly, Mr. McCullough just made my point, which is the reason why you want a board member as part of that task force, and you also want an administrator as part of that task force.
You want it through the chairman of the committees.
Then everybody's there.
Asking for it anyway. We already bombard the administration with 9 of us ask information. My only thing is run everything through the committee.
Here, let me just make this suggestion, okay? Watch, Mr. Basil, you're on the mic. We're going to have the members of the citizens group as members of our individual committees, okay? We already agreed to that part.
Well, they're not going to be members of your committees. They're going to be liaisons to your committees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sitting liaisons to the committee.
You want to call them, yes.
Right. Whatever.
With access to all information except that which you determine is confidential.
Right.
So, generally speaking, they would have access to the same information that's made available to
the public at the time of the meeting.
Or the committee members.
No. See, as a standing rule,
if it's made public,
document, we don't hand that out to the public during a committee.
But some committees do.
They would get it.
But some committees actually hand it out. If I sit and I talk, hang on a second. If there are some committees that have information that's handed out to the public at the time of the meeting, but the committee members get it ahead of time to work with, so they have access to that information ahead of time. Okay, anything that's not handed out to the public would still be made available to them prior to the meeting, so that they would be able to study it, work with it, with the understanding that it is not available for public. It's a working document, and those would be independent. They're going to be committee dependent on what they are.
As long as it's not confidential.
As far as access to administration, that access is through the committee chair. So, if again, I'm going to use Mr. Blakesley because, it's mine. He comes back and wants to know what the average teaching load for a math teacher at the high school is. It'd come through the committee chair, who would either have it or would ask the administration for it.
And by the way, just to stop you there for a second, that is our rule too.
Yes.
If I sit on the committee and Ms. Hannah is the chair, we had made an agreement that I will not go to the administration and bombard them with questions. I will follow that through. So it's no different than you sitting on the committee as it would be me. It's just a rule that we follow because administration, especially during budget season, gets inundated with questions from us. And we said this isn't going to work. We have to back it, funnel all our questions, either Mr. Basil or the committee chair.
I would add, and that might be overridden by other people on board, that if a committee, if a task force member wants information, they could go to the committee chair or they could go to the board president. Sure. That's very good.
Now, again, I just asked the question. We do have to watch the number of board members that attend your meeting, because if we get 5 board members that attend your meeting, then it's a fuzzy area because we now have 5 board members openly discussing an issue, even though it's not at a board meeting. So we'll have to watch that one, okay?
Why would there be 5 board members at a task force meeting?
It's a public meeting.
Again,
it was just something that was brought up And I wanted to make sure it was covered. That's all, Mr. Basil.
That's great.
Let's clarify.
Okay, so right now we got a member of the task force that's going to be on each of our standing committees, and I guess ad hoc committees, because transportation's an ad hoc committee. The only committee they're not going to be on is negotiations.
Policy.
And they're not on policy.
Yeah, they should be. I don't see any reason why they couldn't sit on policy. And remember, policy impacts budget. It impacts facilities use. It impacts, it's not everything that has to do with the budget, for crying out loud. So.
Yeah. Okay, and I agree. So we're going to need a representative for the policy committee. Okay. They'll sit on those meetings. They'll get all access to all documentation that every other board member would get. The chairs will have to make sure that they let them know whether it is a working document or something that will be provided to the public. Did I miss anything? And I guess the board decided they do not want a board member now as part of a ad hoc committee.
Well, obviously, as a facilities building and grounds chair, I mean, obviously, as far as facilities chair, I mean, obviously, I'll give you all the information possible. And if there's anything you need afterwards, I'd be willing to meet with you or the group, maybe even after the meeting. And that might be something we might have to do. That way we can combine it.
Right. You could be
meeting within the meeting, and we don't have to meet on another night.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, that's the whole point. So we just want to be like a suspension.
Right. And I envision, Mr. Blakesley going back with what we talk about and sending an email and say, okay, guys, this is what we do. How about trying it this way? And then we bring it up at the next meeting, or so we already looked at that, September last year, and these are the reasons why. I got that part. Maybe I'm just thick as to why, and Mr. Basil was going in the direction we all agreed to go last time, and I guess after cooler minds prevailed, decided not to go that direction, and I guess we all apologize as a board for Mr. Basil having to do the extra work that wasn't needed then. So I think in the end we got.
I just like this. If this is the will of the board to take this as a first step, that's fine. I think personally, we're adding a layer of complexity by forcing the task force to go back through all these committee chairs to in order to pursue an idea that may involve multiple committees. Whereas if you have a board member on there, even as an advisory member, they can tend to cut through the tape and get directly to the board members perhaps quicker, get answers a little bit faster from the administration, and so on and so forth, and get back to that board, that ad hoc committee as a group, make it a lot quicker than going the other way. That's my 2 cents. We can try it the first way and see how it goes. I just think that we need to put a little bit more direct line communication on the task force itself.
Again, maybe this is what was missing. And Megan, were you envisioning that this task force of the representatives of the individual committees as well as the 3 board members, that would be the only people that would be attending that meeting?
Of the task force?
No, hang on. Of this ad hoc committee that was being proposed.
Look, my original thought when I read through what was provided to me from this member of the task force, I think it was Dauphin County or whatever it is that they, was it Lancaster? I can't remember now. I don't have the report in front of me.
It was Dauphin.
And I saw what they did. It appeared to me they had one board member on there. They had an administration representation. They had teachers' input. And they had a lot of people from the public involved. And it almost operated as an independent body. Okay, it didn't have we took things in a different direction, which was trying to mimic what our committees already did and sort of save everybody some time and effort. What their other task force did is they basically were an independent body that researched all ideas, curriculum instruction, policy, facilities use, every single thing you could possibly think of as an independent body. Like, think of it as one giant budget workshop ad hoc committee that just worked for 6 months straight on anything related to the budget. And so that committee then, when they asked something from the administration, they got it. When they asked something from, they had research to do, they had 20 people working on it, and so on and so forth. And it seemed to me when, at least if something was getting have the issue of getting the people, the volunteers, and the public up to speed quickly, and not replicating work that this board has already done over the last 3 years. And so the easiest way I saw to do that was for different people from this volunteer group that sit on our committees, our subcommittees, that the board already has, in order to glean the information that's already been discussed there and to continue to vet ideas in that direction. And then to bring either tasks from the task force itself to the committees directly, or to help those committees burn dog down the ideas that we as a board have already assigned to them. And so it wasn't my intent to have 3 different board members on this task force, but I thought, quite frankly, they had an administrative representative that they could go to get information from, so they weren't burdening. Dr. Otto wasn't getting calls from all of our committees, plus the task force, plus some other, they had their own administrative representative who could get them information independent from everybody else, and that they had some input from the teachers because they had first-hand knowledge, and that we had some board oversight. And that, they had a board member there giving advice about how the board operates, how the administration operates, what were the right types of questions to ask, where is the proper place to go to get this information, who should they talk to in terms of the committees. The question came up, is that curriculum or is that policy? That board member could give them some advice on that, so they're going to the right person to begin with. And they're not going to 3 different committee chairs with the same question. And then you have the people from the public that are participating on this who are literally effectively the boots on the ground, and they're providing a different perspective to the issues that the board is looking at. That's the way I saw it.
I hear where you're going with it, and I still think if we progress to that point, maybe we progress to that point, you need us, and we'll certainly do it if you need us. But I think it's just way too redundant. I mean, we're sitting at a voting meeting, we're sitting at a
Committee of the Whole
meeting. I sit on the REC, I sit on finance, I sit on policy, and if you can't get the information from me on all those meetings, now I got to sit in another meeting and go through it again. And when are we getting any work done?
As well as everybody, as well as another form back to administration.
Look, it wasn't my suggestion to put 3 board members on there. Okay, I was taking information from the board and trying to incorporate that to put together the committee that the board wanted to see.
And I think, Mr. Basil, I think the point also was. I think the other point, which is that the board has decided they do not want a direct conduit back to the administration from the organization. They want it to go through the committee chairs, and the committee chairs are all nodding their heads. I mean, you can't see that.
Okay, look, I'm not arguing. If that's the will of the board, that's the will of the board. Let's move on.
And again, let's call it a work in progress and see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then maybe we say we assign one person from that organization as the conduit and have them conduit everything through that person. So, but for right now, you got a person on from your organization sits on each one of our committees.
Try for 6 months.
Okay.
Just add policy to it as well.
Add policy and get a policy head.
If you have a person that wants to sit in policy.
And quite frankly, looking at the cast of that you had there, I think there were very appropriate choices. So,
all of our committees meet on Wednesday nights, except for facilities.
Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Now that we, any other old business? Any new business?
Yeah, I have a question, Dr. Otto. I was looking at the field trip request, and maybe it was just a typo. If not, please explain it to me. The DBHS bus in 2013, the Shady Maple Restaurant, it's budgeted, from my experience, as paid for by students because we planned this trip last year. So is that a mistake on part of the agenda, or is that a mistake on part of my understanding?
If it's a mistake on here, I want my money back because I paid for it.
I would have to get you an answer on that. I don't really know at this point.
Because I know students have been paying.
Right.
Mr. Henkel, he's nodding his head.
We didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So it's an error because I know I had to pay. Yeah.
It's possible it should be here.
Pardon?
It's student funded, so it's an error.
Just clarified?
Thank you.
Okay. We'll make a note of that.
Any other new business? Okay, presentation by the public on agenda, on issues. better. Almost.
Since this is a voting meeting and you had 16A on here,
No. We have added things at the end for old and new business about a year and a half ago that were discussion items only, just as you know we do with the voting meeting as part of the committee of the whole. These are just things that we've added to keep things moving forward, so that they're not lost.
The organization that wants to start budget task force, they run the meeting, they decide who's on their committee,
Just say thank you.
have a consultant or administrator that has a consultant.
Just say thank you.
That's one thing. And the second thing to do is attend all the committee meetings, particularly if it's called a budget task force, it would certainly be finance, maybe other committees too. I don't understand why. In other words, I kind of agree with the fact that 903 which you now say you're not going to do because it's another layer, but I think it's important that they meet.
That's up to them.
You provide them a facility at no expense, and you give them all the information they need at no expense. And then it's their obligation to sit down and discuss what they want to discuss. Then a representative of that come to your committee meetings and express that. And then what they hear, they go back to their committee. Maybe that's...
And we agree. And as far as the name and function, it's not our committee; it's their committee, and their representative is right there. You can speak to her probably after the meeting. But they named themselves, they chartered themselves, and they've come up with their own organizational structure. So, thank you. Any other?
Oh, you got people coming forward.
Craig Brown, 50 Woodland Road, Birdsboro. On the last page of the agenda, it's listed out the use of the facilities and who's going to be using them. And it just struck me that all the different uses of the field are all listed as no fee. And I was just curious, is there a published fee schedule by organization or category that's available on the school website?
Yes, there is a published fee schedule. It's not on the website. It is.
It's under guideline 701.
It's embedded in a policy.
It's embedded in a policy. 701.
I'm not so
Facility use.
Facilities use request.
Request. So there is, and usually, typically, nonprofits are not charged a fee. Or
with all the budget constraints, is there any task force that's out there looking for different leagues that already pay fees for township fields and whatnot? Would Dana consider something like that?
Well, if you noticed, we did approve the Rage soccer team to use our field, which again brought fees in. That's part of the revenue enhancements task to find other ways to use our facilities. And if you remember last year, they talked about bringing a circus in to use our facility to potentially raise some money. So they are actively looking to find other organizations or that typically would be using other buildings for a fee that we could use ours for. Yes, that's part of their charter. Whether they're actually going to be doing it at any one meeting you attend is going to be part of the chair's responsibility to set that agenda, and it may not be in the next meeting you go to, but that is part of what they would look at.
Is the Rage Soccer Club the only one?
We also have in the fall for the semi-pro football team, Red City Outlaws.
Right.
They do come in, we get around $2,000 for that. Obviously, if they have playoff games, it will extend out, and they will be coming back this year.
We also look, the YMCA, the Y does an after-school care and utilizes our facility and pays for that also.
And on page 7, so what category do these all fall into?
Again, we would have to allow, the administration to look at them, but if you look at most of them, they are nonprofits.
Partly why we're looking for the facilities use costs. And we submit one of these, we're actually looking to charge them, even if it's a no fee, that they would actually pay a processing.
Okay.
We do have looking at ways.
We do have one.
I just see an opportunity here to look out, see if there's other clubs. There are other clubs already paying field fees. We'll consider maybe kind of marketing and looking to try to put some of that revenue.
I think it's something we should look at. Can we talk about it in the revenue enhancement committee?
I really think there's a pretty big potential there.
I agree.
I would like to say, as far as Berkshire Baseball, they do provide a lot of equipment for the school. Third practice cages, there was thousands of dollars donated.
Especially related when you're expanding your opportunities.
It's every year that we're donating funds. So, obviously we keep looking at this every year. So obviously we think we're going to grab this big shell of funds, and obviously after we look at it, it shrinks considerably. So, but yes, we're always looking for it. And if you have any kind of information or ideas, here, come forward.
Okay, I'll be sure to go to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any others?
Kids Day has for the time. I think our elementary school, the fifth grade band should not be there because the both winners, the skill, kids that it's moving to us.
Thank you.
Shane Cockle, 830 Bakertown Road. With the task force and your working documents, I think it would also benefit during your committee meetings if you would hand out those working documents and then at the end of the meeting, ask for it back. I'm not saying the entire information that's going to be shared with the ad hoc committee, but it would benefit everyone at those meetings because it's being spoken about, everything being discussed. We're not able to see the paper that you guys are reading, but if it is something that, like you say, you hand your paper out at your meeting, if it is something you can ask for back at the end.
My documents aren't what is termed a working document. They're more a publicly accessible document. I just provide it. What I have asked, and maybe the other committees can ask also, is maybe a Proxima or something where you can project it on the screen. I don't think necessarily handing out a document and then having the police make sure you got all 13 of those documents back or 14 of those documents back is the right thing to do. But on things where you got a large amounts of data, finance or something else, projecting up on the screen is something, but that's going to be up to the individual committee chairs.
I
always like that idea too.
And here's the other thing.
Projecting it up to the public.
Well, the other thing is, one is the cost of printing them because we're constantly telling all the schools to monitor them up in the copying and everything else. And now we're going to copy again. Put it up on the screen.
Yeah. So let's look in that direction rather than handing out a copy.
I sit in these meetings, and you guys are looking at a piece of paper. We don't really get to see what we're talking about. And second, I'd like to comment on Mr. Brown's last point that he made. I have a child who did Odyssey on the Mind. That's a nonprofit. Another one played basketball, nonprofit. Another child, man, nonprofit. But you guys charge them. I think all these nonprofits would understand that you're charging your own students to
It's 3 minutes. Yeah. Again, they're looking into different ways to raise revenue, and I'm going to leave that up to them. I mean, they're talking about charging a fee for the application unto itself, which may bring revenue. So, okay, thank you. Any other comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.
Yes, Andrew, he's coming around.
Andrew, are you coming through the exec?
Yeah, somebody needs to call me.
They will when we get in there.
All right.
Thank you.